Good morning. The Subcommittee on Economic Development and Natural Resources of the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee will come to order. We have a staff presentation today on budget amendments that are relevant to the committee. And with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Jason Powell from the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee staff. Jason, take it away.
Senator Marston. Mr. Chairman, member of the committee. Today we have 109 budget amendment requests of things that are not in the introduced budget from the members. For your convenience, behind tab 1, I have bifurcated them out into an economic development and labor section, and behind tab 2, further up to the front. There you go. And behind the second tab of the first section, I have done the natural resources ones. I'm going to try to get through at least economic development side of the house. In case we have to stop at 8:15 in order to get downstairs for the full committee at 8:30.
Oh, looky here.
All right.
Team has arrived.
The first spreadsheet is Senate Bill 29 requests. Located right here behind tab 1. Senator Hanger, you have the first amendment request. It is for $500,000, and it is directing VEC to retain a consultant consistent with JLARC's recommendation number 1 of the VEC report to do operational improvements. Senator McPike has a similar amendment. The language regarding the consultant is identical. Senator Hanger, you also have some more specific general direction. Senator Ruff, you have amendments 3 and 4, both of which would be required to effectuate MEI-approved projects. The first one is $15 million for the city of Richmond, consistent with the CoStar project. The other is $1.4 million in FY22 for the Blue Star project. You have a companion amendment in Senate Bill 30 that would continue to provide funding to the Talent Accelerator program related to that project. Senator Marston, you have the next two, Mr. Chair, which would simply move the $150 million for the Business Ready Site program from VEDP to Economic Development Incentive Payments, because you have legislation working its way through the process that would codify that. It was a thought process that it might be easier or a better place to administer it as an Economic Development Incentive Payment. The last 4 there are natural resources related, but because they're quick, I'll just go through them. Senator Pillion has a request that would allow the existing allocation for the Mendota Trail to not revert at the end of the fiscal year to time with sort of their contract work that's been going on. Senator Pillion also has a supplemental funding request for the Chafin Lodge at Breaks Interstate Park. It's $430,000. Senator Surivel has language that would repurpose the existing $2 million appropriation at DCR for River Farm to enable DCR to do accessibility improvements at the parcel. The way the language is currently written, the funding would have to go to Nova Parks, and I understand that proposal is not moving forward. And then the last one, Senator Pillion on line 10, has language that would direct DEQ to provide technical assistance to the city of Bristol with respect to the landfill.
Mr. Chairman, on River Farm, that deal fell through as far as being able to acquire with that money, but is public access going to be a part of the deal if we're going to make improvements into it?
If my understanding is that I have a supporter of and friend of mine who's putting $500,000 into the project. What they want to do is they're going to deal with riverbank erosion, accessibility, being able to get down to the water for passive access. It's not going to be a boat ramp, but allow people to, haul a kayak down there, that kind of thing, and take off from there, as well as redo the gardens and turn it all into an interpretive kind of thing, and it'll still be owned by the American Horticultural Society.
Okay, but open to the public for a fee, is that what? Or just that's their?
You know, I'm not sure of the fee structure there. I'm sure there is some fee. They also, it's
But I
where.
mean, it'll be open to the public one way.
Oh, yeah, it will be
Okay,
open.
That was where I was, the issue I had, unless it was just a private little club and we're fixing it up.
No, although it forever will live in infamy as the place where Servell got married. So, you know, that's, you know, we'll have a placard there to advise people. So, go ahead, Jason.
I was just checking the language. As he has requested it doesn't specifically contemplate that, but certainly as we work our way through the subcommittee process, it could.
Could go
To
to.
ensure that.
To ensure, but I mean, that's certainly in the purview of the subcommittee.
I'm sorry,
if-
Jason. I don't,
If you move forward with that decision, you could modify the language to reflect Senator Hanger's public access
oh, yeah.
concern, if that is the will of the
Sure,
subcommittee.
sure. That is the purpose.
Turning behind those first green sheets, now move to that big spreadsheet there. Right. Now we are going to deal with the, I believe I got 44 economic development, commerce and trade and labor related amendments. Senator Ruff, on line 1, you are the first one. This is the companion to the Blue Star for the Virginia Talent Accelerator Program. Senator Marsden, you have the next one, which would be a supplemental funding of $10 million each year for the Business Sites Ready program. I would note Governor Youngkin has also requested a total of $28.9 million for the sites program as well, which would bring the annual appropriation to $20 million for that if you did Governor Youngkin's approach. Senator McPike on line 3 has a proposal to put an additional $5 million each year in the Commonwealth Opportunity Fund, specifically for the Tobacco Region Revitalization Commission's Talent Accelerator Program. On line 4, Senator Edwards has requested $15.8 million for the city of Roanoke for an existing facility that is a bio facility. I would note that this also has a request that is probably duplicative, that's in capital outlay, and a component of it that's in higher education. I think that it's just sort of in the ether in a couple of places.
He's got it in both, or is it somebody else?
Yes, sir. No, I believe the total amount of the Roanoke request is the 15.8. It's just in here as well as in other places. On line 5, Senator McClellan is requesting $35 million for a life sciences building at the Virginia Biotech Park and some ancillary improvements in the Petersburg facility too, I believe, with respect to the supply chain, the pharmaceutical supply chain cluster. On line 6, Senator Favola is requesting $30 million over the biennium to establish a temporary step-down program within the Virginia Eviction Reduction Pilot Program. On line 7, Senator Hashmi is requesting $5.5 million each year for a new restorative homeownership pilot program to provide down payment assistance for first-time home buyers in the Richmond MSA. On line 8, Senator Hashmi has a language request directing DHCD to develop a model lot lease for manufactured homes. On line 9, Senator McClellan is requesting language in the first year that would direct a study of housing stability and then $73 million in the second year to capitalize a housing stability fund. On line 10, Senator Eben is requesting an additional $20 million in each year for the Housing Trust Fund. The introduced budget contains, I believe, $190 million of new funding for that program as well. On line 11, Senator Favola is requesting $8 million in each year for continue the Municipal Utility Relief Program with general fund cash, currently funded with ARPA dollars. On line 12, Senator Morrissey is requesting a total of $27 million to renovate and redevelop the Creighton Court project in the city of Richmond, contingent upon matching funds from the city for a like amount. On line 13, Senator Boysko has requested $1 million in each year for a Commonwealth broadband affordability program that would provide affordability subsidies. Senator Bell on line 15 has a placeholder amendment relative to Senate Bill 312, which is still in general laws. I was reviewing the FIST this morning. DHCD indicates that it would cost between $300,000 to $600,000 a year for staffing and between $73 and $280 million to capitalize that program. On line 15, Senator Boysko has a $50,000 placeholder related to the broadband affordability program. I do not believe that that specific bill has a fiscal impact, but I don't have the bill number. Senator McPike on line 16 is proposing an additional $7 million in each year for the Visita broadband pilot expansion to provide space-based broadband accounts throughout the Appalachian region, and it would be managed by the Coalfields Economic Development Authority. Turning to line 17, Senator Edwards is requesting language that would continue to allow municipal broadband authorities to be eligible to receive VATI funds. On line 18, Senator Deeds has been working, I believe, with stakeholders and has a proposal to provide $218,000 of general funds in each year to establish 2 Coalfield Community Development Program managers within the Division of Economic Development at DHCD to coordinate and provide a cross-governmental approach in ensuring the implementation of Coalfield's programs. I think this is an approach that has been evolving since our annual meeting, and it could certainly be beneficial in coordinating responses to economic development proposal requests and things like that. On line 19, Senator Morrissey is requesting $2.6 million to allow the city of Petersburg to subsequently to demolish that former Ramada Inn. On line 20, Senator Morrissey is requesting $3 million to establish a blighted loan program that would be managed by the city of Petersburg, sort of modeled on the state's derelict structures program. On line 21, moving to line 21, Senator Deeds is requesting $4.8 million in the first year for a streetscape project in the village of Lovingston. Mr. Chairman, you have requested on line 22 a total of $8 million for the Community Development Financing Institutions Fund that was established last year. On line 23, Senator Surville has $200,000 in each year to establish a task force to study the adequacy of current laws addressing structural integrity of buildings, as well as HOA maintenance reserves or common interest community maintenance reserve funding, as well as capital reserves maintained by those communities. Mr. Chairman, on line 24, you have a request for $40 million in each year for the Driving Decarbonization Grant Fund that goes along with the bill that is making its way.
$20 million each year?
That is what you have requested.
Yeah, $40 million total. Okay.
On line 25, Senator McClellan has requested $40 million in each year for an electric vehicle rebate program, which I believe is maybe duplicative. I don't understand the interplay between the two of them.
One of them is a rebate program for the purchase of vehicles. The other one deals with charging stations. Mine deals with charging stations.
Thank you, Senator. On line 26, Senator Newman is requesting $100,000 in the first year for a VEDP and a collaborative research study between VEDP and the Tobacco Commission and the Central Virginia Planning District Commission to study the feasibility of establishing an inland port in the Region 2000. On line 27, Senator Lucas is requesting a total of $20 million over the biennium to establish an offshore wind energy supply chain grant fund. It's also a sort of a maritime industry supply chain program writ large. On line 28, Senator Ruff, you've requested $200,000 for a similar program, which would have VEDP first doing a study of the programs and strategies needed to attract skilled maritime workers and offshore wind workers. On line 29, Senator Barker, you've requested $100,000 each year to develop to have a consultant develop recommendations to integrate the federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act programs. On line 30, Senator Lucas is requesting a total of $2 million over the biennium for SAIL 250. The introduced budget contains $1 million for the program in the first year. On line 31, Senator Stanley is requesting a total of $10 million over the biennium to establish a motorsports heritage trail and the Wendell Scott Museum. On line 32, Senator McClellan is requesting $600,000 in each year to support operation of the Commonwealth Center for Advanced Logistics Systems, to provide a full-time data scientist, and to provide funding for 10 undergraduate internships and 5 graduate research internship assistants at Virginia State, VCU, Longwood, UVA, and ODU. On line 33, Senator Ruff, you have a language amendment that would expand the ability of CCAM to do add-on and follow-on investments in collaboration with their stakeholders after the initial terms of the investment has concluded. Turning to labor, on line 34, Senator McPike is continuing the language and providing another supplemental $150,000 for JLARC's recommendation 1. Senator Hanger, that's the consultant report, so this is just the continuation into the big bill. On line 35, Senator Boysko has a placeholder amount for the salary histories, her salary histories legislation. I have not had a chance. It is still going through the process, and I haven't had a chance to check for a FIS. Senator Surivel has $200,000 in each year on line 36 for Senate Bill 252, which is his paid sick leave bill. Again, I have not had a chance to check for the FIS. Senator Bell on line 37 has a placeholder amendment for boiler operator certification. The FIS indicates that I don't think that would be necessary. I believe we have that bill in committee today, if we haven't already done it. On line 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, and 43, Senator McPike has a suite of amendments for VEC that are all drawn from the JLARC report. Some of them require funding, such as a consultant for IT security, as well as to establish the appeals ombudsman. I believe that bill is on this morning's docket as well. And then on line 44, Senator Boysko has an amendment that would authorize a Treasury loan to VEC for approximately $55.6 million to establish a paid family medical leave program. If you'll flip to tab 2, we're actually doing great on time, and I will see if I can get through natural resources in about 15 minutes. The first sheet is the Senate Bill 29 requests, which we covered back in the beginning, so it's really just those last 4, Mendota breaks, the River Farm, and the Bristol landfill language. Flipping past that and those green sheets to the next big spreadsheet, we have the 65 natural resource and agriculture and forestry related amendments. Line 1, Senator McClellan is requesting $1 million in each year for the Virginia Fresh Match Nutrition Incentive Program. Senator Marston, on line 2, you have a non-general fund placeholder amendment to recognize the fees that would be collected from animal research institutions.
To pay for their own investigator.
I think that to operationalize that, and it has been brought up by the department that may need to establish a fund to put the money into, which the bill doesn't currently do, but we can talk about that later. Senator Boysko has a placeholder amendment on line 3 relative to her bill on the breeding of cats and dogs for research. Whatever the committee does with the bill, the subcommittee will correspondingly, I would assume, recognize either the non-general funds or fund a position. On line 4, Senator Peake is requesting a total of $626,000 over the biennium to support a women in agriculture program at Sweetbriar. On line 5, Senator McClellan is requesting a total of $2 million over the biennium for the Virginia Food Access Investment Fund. On line 6, Senator Bell, I'll take them kind of in a block. 6, 7, 8, and 9 all are related to gaming legislation that is working its way through the process. The bills have come to the full committee, and I would expect the subcommittee will recognize whatever fiscal impact is the result of the bills that come out of the
Are
committee.
these Reeves and Bell's duplication of each other, or are they each different?
They were all placeholder amendments. Should they have costs? Some of them don't have costs because it's just changing enforcement criteria or things like that. Some of them may have costs.
Okay.
Again, just depending on how the legislation comes out of the committee. On line 10, Senator Ruff, you have the Forest Sustainability Fund. I think that it, one option of that, it would be also to consider having forestry do a report back on what the needs for capitalization of that fund would be, consistent with legislation making its way through the process. On line 11, Senator Deeds has language to support the Virginia Horse Center from historical horse racing proceeds. This does not affect the general fund allocations. It's coming from allocations within the horse racing and breeders' communities. Senator Hanger, on line 12, you have $6 million in the first year to support the remediation costs at the Eastern Shore Farmers Market. Sort of the challenge of surplusing it was that it has some remediation costs that make it kind of impossible to do at the moment.
I think if we can, just defease the bonds on it so that it can be sold.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hanger, there have been some complications with respects to defeasements of bonds, as was brought to our attention in the past few days with Central Virginia.
Okay.
Yes, sir, we learned that they did not defease the bonds of Central Virginia, and they reverted the money to the general fund. We learned that yesterday. Mr. Chairman, on line 13, Senator Hashmi proposes to continue the interagency environmental justice work group. On line 14, Senator Kiggins has a placeholder amendment of $50,000 in each year for the Coastal Virginia Resilience Authority. I believe the Governor Youngkin requested approximately $2.5 million. Yes, Governor Youngkin has requested $2.5 million each year for the Coastal Virginia Resiliency Authority. On line 15, Senator Ruff, you have requested $3.6 million to support the base technical assistance programs for the soil and water conservation districts. Senator Hanger, on line 16, you have requested $350,000 in each year to support 2 staff in the Office of Environmental Education. On line 17, Senator Hanger, that's the same request as Senator Ruff. On line 18, Senator Hanger, you have this is a technical amendment actually that would true up the costs of the dam monitoring and recognize that it would in fact be finished in fiscal year 23. On line 19, Senator Lewis is proposing $25 million to capitalize the Resilient Virginia Revolving Loan Fund. I believe you'll hear that bill this morning. On line 20, Senator Marsden, you are proposing funding for one position to implement the Flood Resiliency and Protection Program. However, I don't believe that funding is necessary as the RGGI proceeds would cover it. Senator Marsden, Mr. Chairman, you are proposing a total of $50 million over the biennium for the Virginia Land Conservation Fund, consistent with Senate Bill 31, which would require the governor to provide a total of $40 million in each year for land programs in the introduced budget. On line 22, Senator Deeds has language directing the Virginia Outdoor Foundation to transfer Hayfields Farms to DCR for the purposes of developing a state park. The feasibility study, it doesn't have a full park study done on it, but there was an initial feasibility study that indicates that the parcel could be transferred, should the committee so elect. On line 23, Senator McClellan is requesting a total of $30 million over the biennium for a master plan for the James River Park system. I believe that would be passed through to the city of Richmond. On line 24, Senator Deeds is requesting, that is the other half of the hayfield, so that's the operational funding, $12.8 million in the second year. On line 25, Senator Vogel is requesting the operational costs of about $1.3 million for the Sweet Run State Park, which we received from Loudon last year, but do not yet have operating costs, or operating costs are not yet appropriated. On line 26, Senator Pillion is requesting $466,500 in the first year to continue funding the Mendota Trail project. Senator Ruff, you have $80,000 in the first year at the Department of Environmental Quality for a work group on polystyrene food services containers, and then you would direct DEQ to develop regulations consistent with the APA. On line 28, Senator Survell has a companion amendment to his SB 250 that recognizes the direction of the work group to adjust non-hazardous solid waste fees, raises them, and indexes them to CPI. On line 29, Senator Deeds is requesting $320,000 in the first year for continued surveillance of groundwater for PFAS. On line 30, Senator Pillion is requesting language that would direct the State Air Pollution Control Board to modify its final regulations regarding hydrofluorocarbons, specifically to exempt manufacturing processes for aviation and aerospace businesses. On line 31, Senator Hanger, you have language relative to wastewater grant agreements requiring all the recipients of the NRC and WQIF grants to submit monthly reporting to DEQ, and for a monthly needs assessment to be submitted to the chairs of the money committees. On line 32, Senator Morrissey is requesting $16.8 million for wastewater upgrades at the Port Creek Pharmaceutical Park in Petersburg, continuing the project that has been funded with ARPA funds from the special session. On line 33, Senator Morrissey is requesting $3.4 million to supplement a water project in the same area. On line 34, Senator Stewart is requesting $150,000 in each year to reflect the cost of the increased use of mediation by DEQ. I'm uncertain of the fate of that bill. On line 35, Senator Deeds is requesting $200,000 in each year for additional staffing at Wildlife Resources to develop a statewide freshwater mussel restoration plan. Senator Marsden, you have requested on line 36 $4.5 million in the first year to capitalize the Wildlife Corridor Grant Fund contained in your bill, and $250,000 each year for staffing to support implementation of that program. On line 37, Senator Stewart is requesting $2.5 million for the King and Queen Fish Hatchery, operated by the Department of Wildlife Resources. Moving to historic resources, there was about $6.5 million worth of museum requests included in the introduced budget. These are all largely museum requests that I'll go through now. Senator Eben is requesting $500,000 in the first year for the city of Alexandria to the preservation of the Douglas Memorial Cemetery. On line 39, Senator Deeds is requesting $5 million in the first year for the development of a Vietnam War and Foreign Conflicts Museum. On line 40, Senator Deeds is requesting a little bit more than, or right around $600,000 over the biennium to support relocation and restoration of the Gladstone Depot in Nelson County. On line 41, Senator Morrissey is requesting $100,000 in the first year for Weston Manor. On line 42, Senator McClellan is requesting an additional $50,000 in each year for the Alegba Folklore Society. I believe $50,000 was included in the budget as introduced. On line 43, Senator McClellan is requesting $425,000 to support tribal outreach initiative. I believe this is consistent with a legislation that she'll have this morning. The amendment is drawn to Historic Resources. I believe the FIS indicated the position would be at the Secretary of the Commonwealth. So that request is consistent with the bill. Senator Peterson on line 44 is requesting $1 million for the Jeremiah Moore House in City of Fairfax. On line 38, Senator Stewart is requesting $300,000 in the first year for Stafford County for construction of a replica of the Langley Aerodrome, which is kind of like the Wright Flyer. It's very neat. On line 46, Senator McClellan is requesting $100,000 in each year to support the increased number of graves that would be eligible for reimbursement, consistent with her Senate Bill 477. On line 47, Senator Eben is requesting $4 million in the first year to the City of Alexandria for the Senator John Warner Maritime Heritage Center. On line 48, Senator Deeds is requesting $325,000 in the first year for the town of Goshen for the Goshen School. On line 49, Senator Hanger, you are requesting, sir, $3.5 million in the first year and $4.3 in the second year for supplemental funding to the Battlefield Preservation Fund, as well as, I believe, some specific preservation grants for Brandy Station and others in the area.
Emmett, let me,
When we're finished here, I wanted to talk to you about that. Had some conversations around Brandy Station.
Okay.
On line 50, Senator Edwards is requesting $500,000 in the first year for the Woodrow Wilson Presidential Library. Moving to MRC, on line 51, Senator Lewis is proposing $117,000 a year for a staff position within the Oyster Division at the VMRC. On line 52, Senator Stewart has a language request relative to his Senate Bill 358, the Seafood Industry Ombudsman, that would allow VMRC to recover costs for the office through fee structure. I believe there is a substitute for the bill that makes it a Title Section 1 bill that would direct the governor's office to do that program. Turning to the ARPA requests. And I don't know, members, Mr. Chairman, if ARPA will really be handled by the Economic Development or Natural Resources Subcommittee, or more of a global discussion of resources and the best use of ARPA funds. And before we start, I would mention that we have heard that we need to hold a planning number of around $100 million of ARPA funds for the UI Trust Fund to prevent the fund builder from going into effect.
fund,
The fund builder,
which is,
tax on businesses.
okay.
Senator Barker, on line 53, you are requesting $11 million in ARPA funding to continue assistance for the food bank infrastructure program. On line 54, Senator Eben is requesting $200 million of ARPA funding for the hospitality and tourism business grant program. On line 55, Senator Deeds has language that would provide, oh man, it is, I'm sorry, I transposed the number wrong. He's got a $130 million request for restaurants. On line 56, Senator Survell is requesting $3.5 million of ARPA funding to extend the water line to Pohick Bay Regional Park. So that funding would go to the Northern Virginia Regional Parks Authority. On line 57, Senator Survell is requesting $240.6 million to eliminate the maintenance and deferred maintenance backlog across the entirety of the state park system. On line 58, Senator Survell is requesting $5.4 million of ARPA funding to provide water and sewer lines to all Fairfax County public school outdoor athletic facilities. On line 59, Senator Stewart is requesting $3 million. And as we discussed in the committee, Senator Stewart just put in a placeholder request. I came up with the $3 million for Senate Bill 355, which adds Fredericksburg to the ENRC. The introduced budget proposes $27 million for that program. On line 60, Senator Stewart is requesting $40.4 million in ARPA funding for Stafford County to upgrade the Little Falls Run wastewater treatment facility. On line 61, Senator Stewart is requesting about $6 million, $5.8 million for the town of Colonial Beach's sewer repair system. On line 62, Mr. Chairman, you've requested $630,000 of ARPA funds to be allocated to the planning district commissions to facilitate localities in their administration and reporting of ARPA funds. On line 63, Senator Ruff, you have requested $1.5 million for 4-H educational centers who have lost revenue during the close. On line 64, Senator Hanger, this is the language amendment relative to the Eastern Shore Farmers Market. And on line 65, Senator Stewart would remove the ability of DCR to access a line of credit for the initial startup costs of participation in RGGI. And Mr. Chairman, that completes the annual reading of the amendments. If you'll turn to, behind 3, tab 3, I didn't have time to put them into the spreadsheet, but I do have all of Governor Youngkin's requests that are in the area of economic development and natural resources.
Starting
On tab 3, it's just the word. It's right there. The first one, yes, sir. That one would remove Virginia from participation in RGGI. Flipping the page, Governor Youngkin is requesting $83.9 million over the biennium for funding to Go Virginia for a Talent Pathways program. Flipping the page, I mentioned this one already. Governor Youngkin is requesting $14.4 million in each year for supplemental funding for the Virginia Business Ready Sites Fund, bringing that to $20 million in each year. The next one, I've mentioned this already. Governor Youngkin is requesting $2.5 million each year for the Coastal Virginia Resiliency Authority. And the next page, the governor is requesting close to $5 million each year for acquisition of Brandy Station. Should the committee elect to go forward, I understand some technical amendments may be needed.
Mr. You said $5 million each year.
I'm sorry, $5 million in the first year.
Okay, thank you.
It's just acquisition. That's
Yes, yes, sir. I don't believe that it could be operated like a traditional state park. It would be a state battlefield park. And then the last governor's amendment is withdrawing from RGGI. And that, Mr. Chairman, completes the 2022 reading of the amendments.
You did it. You got through it all. All right.
And you
how
can-
does this compare to other years in your experience in terms of the number of issues that were?
Mr. Chairman and members, every session is the worst session until the next session. And you know, we are happy to be here. I wouldn't say it's bad nor worse. The volume is certainly high because there is money and there are tax policy decisions to be made and there are resource allocations decisions to be made. And there's federal funding that still remains available. So all of your cards are currently in your hand.
Great.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you much. Yes, sir.
I have a question on deferred maintenance in state parks.
Yes, sir.
I was at a meeting earlier this morning where it was suggested to me that someone had heard that there was money available that hadn't been spent in that area. And that surprised me. I didn't think that would be true.
That, Mr. Chairman, Senator Hanger, that would be news to me.
I think it's bad information.
Certainly, I'll certainly, we all,
It's not like ARPA money. Hasn't been spent yet.
None of the, yeah, it was, at any rate, I didn't think that was accurate, but somebody had gotten bad information. So, also,
I will certainly follow up with the department.
Mr. Chairman, on the wastewater treatment plant upgrades, Senator Stewart has some amendments there, and then there was a larger one from Senator Morrissey. Are these eligible if they make application for grants through other processes other than just having an earmark for them?
I guess, Mr. Chairman, Senator Hanger, wastewater treatment plants in general for upgrades would be eligible for WQIF reimbursement grants, right? So it's the specific, I don't know the specificity of each of the projects. I believe the Petersburg one might be more closely tied with an economic development project, so I don't know if it's just a general wastewater treatment plant upgrade that would fit in that bucket or not.
It seemed like we've been dealing with them broadly, through resources with Water Quality Improvement Fund,
Sir.
with additional rounds. And then last year, the big bill where we scooped up a bunch of them for agreement, with price tag about 800 million, and then Fredericksburg was added here. But it just seemed like those earmarks would circumvent the normal funding process, that maybe we need to put more money into the pot and then let them compete for it.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hanger, that's certainly the introduced budget includes $100 million for SLAF, so doing more into the WQIF for the wastewater treatment plant program is, consistent.
The WQIF funding this year is $313 million,
Yes,
I believe.
Mr. Chairman, yes.
How many requests in here have been made that would qualify for funding from that
Mr. Chairman,
fund?
I don't believe, well, we can do, and we have agreed to discuss the algal bloom study, right? So most of the $313 million, it has about 44 off the top that go to some specific water quality related initiatives at forestry and things like that. But the bulk of it is for agricultural best management practices, and there are no supplemental requests for agricultural best management practices. And the
There's
budget
just
is
already in the
introduced,
budget.
fully funded, the Ag BMP request, which would be the first time that the Ag BMP request was fully funded. So I guess it all depends on your policy priorities.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Jason?
Thank you.
If not, let's head on to full committee. Thank you.